Well, let's continue conversations around some of the economic policies of late President Buhari, and of course tie it around with the ongoing administration. But one of Nigeria's most well-known political figures, President Buhari, was retired Major General, who initially served as the military head of state from 1983 to 1995, before being elected president again in 2025. Now, his two-term civilian administration, which concluded in 2023, was marked by a comprehensive anti-corruption agenda, an economic reform program, and consistent efforts to tackle insecurity across the nation. President Buhari's presidency saw Nigeria's economy experience both severe lows and notable highs. His government left behind a complex economic legacy, which included aggressive currency reforms, 2 recessions, and significant debt accumulation. Now, the first occurred in 2016, primarily due to a steep drop in global oil prices and inadequate handling of currency issue. The second recession happened in 2020, triggered by the COVID-19 pandemic, which disrupted international trade, reduced demand for oil, and caused widespread economic decline. Now, these mark the first time Nigeria had experienced 2 recessions within a single administration. In August 2019, Buhari's administration issued an order to partially close the land borders. Food prices rose due to the policy's efforts to curb smuggling and encourage domestic rice production. However, in December 2020, facing mounting criticism and economic pressure, the government reopened 4 major land borders. Well, let's start the week by analyzing some of these economic issues under his administration, popularly known as Buharinomics. And with me to do this from our Abuja studios is Dr. Sanusi Ohaire. He's an energy expert, economist, and an academic. Dr. Ohaire, it's been a while. It's good to see you on Business Nigeria today.
Thank you very much, Tolu. It's good to see you too. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been a while. I'm sure you heard my introduction, and a lot of challenges, of course, during that administration. We had a recession, issues with currency, and all of that. Can we do a review of that in your own understanding before we now take it up to another level of how it relates with the present administration?
Thank you very much, Tolu. Before we do that review of the Buharinomics, as you've termed it, I would like to go a bit backwards into the government, the preceding government of President Muhammadu Buhari in 2015. We had an economy that was declining under PDP. We had insecurity. Boko Haram had ravaged everywhere. We had massive scams in terms of oil subsidies. And we have corruption, pervading everywhere. And it was on the basis of these challenges that the APC government campaigned with a manifesto. The Buharinomics is just a derivation of the manifesto of APC. And the campaign was basically on anti-corruption, stemming the tide in terms of insecurity and providing security, bringing back investments, because obviously if there is insecurity pervading everywhere, there will be loss of investor confidence. And then massively spending on infrastructure. So it was on this basis that Nigerians elected President Muhammadu Buhari, being the arrowhead of the APC government at the time. And when he came into power, obviously it would have been nice for us to go aggressively and tackle all of these problems head on. But the sheer challenge that we met on ground, warranted a steady hand, warranted the need to stabilize. It was important to stabilize. For instance, the Petroleum Industry Act that had been discussed for over 20 years before the President Muhammadu Buhari's administration in 2015, we needed to see to it that it was passed, because it was a major premise upon which the reforms, would yield results. The PI eventually was passed, reforming the NNPC, removing regulatory functions from NNPC, having a different arm that regulates NMC being a company on its own and all of that, thereby leading to the removal of subsidy under President Tinubu now. Because if you didn't, reform the NNPC at the time, of course, the president wouldn't have been able to remove the subsidy as he has done now. And everybody agreed that it was the right thing to do. At that time as well, there was, before Buhari came in, there was already a tank in terms of the economy. We weren't growing. There was no much investment in infrastructure. There was a lot of gaps in terms of government spending, a lot of loopholes through which people were siphoning funds. The president campaigned on the mantra of bringing about efficiency in governance and in our spending, and then also blocking these loopholes. When he came, that was when TSA was introduced. If you remember, payments through IPPIS, BVN, linking it with all of this, and it helped, to centralize payments, which is still something that is helping this present government now. So by so doing, they were able to block a lot of loopholes and the likes. Then the issue of security. Remember that before Buhari came, of course, Boko Haram had taken over a couple of local government areas, hoisted their flags, and even almost took over Yobe State, I remember. There was a very daring attack back then that, it took the grace of God and, the bravery of our military, to be able to repel them. If not, they almost took over Yobe. Now, the president came, he made sure that, all of these areas that they hoisted their flags and they had taken over, of course, they were chased from there, they were disbanded, and there was nothing like, having any swat of land under Boko Haram anymore. So this brought, of course, some sort of, confidence, investor confidence back, and then we witnessed a lot of inflow of foreign investment during that time. I remember, for me, back then, I was with the Rural Electrification Agency. This was an agency that had never gotten any grants, not even investment, grants or any form of private investments from private sector before we came. But when we came on board, we were able to attract over $600 million within the first year. That's just for a small agency as REA.
Yeah.
You can imagine other agencies that invest massively in infrastructure or that have the mandate of infrastructure, like rail. They attracted billions of dollars into the rail sector, and that has led to opening up the space, because it was important for the APC government, to enhance logistics, enhance transportation, open up the space, and allow for the free flow of trade, movement of goods and services. It was also important, to invest in roads, and over 13,000 kilometers, was invested in, the construction of roads, under the previous Minister of Works, His Excellency Raji Fashola. It was also important to invest in the airports, and a lot of investment went into building and remodeling, the airports. The president and the APC then also campaigned on diversifying the economy, because we were 90% reliant on oil. What did the government do? That was where you hear some people say, oh, the border was closed and all of that. Obviously, if you want to invest in a local economy, you want the local players, to thrive, you have to close the borders. So that was what was done, so that was when you saw the rice, all the rice mills propping up everywhere within, the country, and, you see young farmers making a lot of money. You saw the CBN providing money, the anchor borrowers, funds and all of that, was there. So under the Buhari, as you termed it, Buharinomics, the idea was to stabilize the economy, invest, heavily in infrastructure, and not forgetting those at the bottom of the pyramid, the less privileged, providing some social safety nets, for them. That was where, of course, you heard of the NSIP, National Social Investment Program, where you'd hear of trader money, market money, and all of those lofty programs that are still ongoing, right now. So the Buharinomics is an offshoot of the APC manifesto of 2015. And interestingly, the APC is still in power today. So it is a continuum. The Buhari government was able to stabilize the economy, try to stem the tide of corruption and then insecurity. By so doing, he provided the groundwork for a Tinubu government to now come in aggressively to try and liberalize the economy and open up the space for investments to come in.
Brilliant breakdown. I agree. I must say I agree with you in some aspects of your submission. But let me take it up from the likes of fighting corruption. The fact that the Treasury single account was instituted is something that analysts like you have also commended. You talked about the PIA and how that has helped attract investment into the oil and gas industry. But let's talk about this social safety network and the fallout of subsidy removal and all. Many are still talking about proper implementation of social safety initiatives. You know, many times you hear the vulnerable ones saying, we don't get some of these funds and all of that. In your thoughts, what do you think should be done as we're consolidating with what has been on ground at the moment? So it's like a two-in-one question. How would you react to that? What should be the ways for, because the impact of this policy is even IMF has agreed that there will be an impact. What do we do with the social safety network initiatives so that it trickles down rightly?
Okay, so obviously some lessons have been learned from the previous administration. At some point, they were handing out, monies just, openly in the market. And obviously that wasn't efficient. But also that was partly due to the fact that, most of those at the bottom of the pyramid are not bankable. Like they do not have, bank accounts, and you cannot, employ technology. But there are also some technologies now that one can rely on. For instance, just simply relying on POS. You can see that you can send money to anybody, anywhere, no matter how rural the place is. I'm not saying POS is the way to go, but I'm saying if we sit down and bring some young people on board, sit down and they think of a way out, you realize that technology can still work even within the extremely rural communities. We did it, when I was in the Rural Education Agency, in the extreme rural communities, they were able to pay for power because of the sort of technologies that the mini-grid developers in such communities, deployed. So if those in charge of handling social safety nets, think deeply and bring the banks, bring, some young IT gurus into the space, I'm sure they'll be able to deploy something. So I'm sure they are currently working on something because I haven't heard of them handing out cash the way it was done in the past.
Yeah.
But then you'd also understand that it was out of the desperation of the government then to ensure that these monies got to those that they were meant to, get to. And then another issue with implementation is when the person at the helms of affairs, in this case right now, the president, Tinubu, no matter how passionate they are about something or the vision they have, if they do not get the right hands to implement, then we'll have a mismatch between the vision of the president and those saddled with the responsibility to implement. So it is important to not just put someone there to implement, but also monitor what they are doing and get feedback from third parties. Do not rely on just the feedback or the reports coming from those agencies because it will always be good news. Right, so have mechanisms where you have third parties that can monitor and then report back to you, with facts, what's on ground and what's been done.
Great stuff. Now, Dangote refinery was also completed, though got onto stream when President Tinubu got into office. Also, the Lekki Deep Sea Port. These are also some notable economic initiatives instituted under the former president. How would you commend this administration taking a cue or, carrying on, consolidating on all of this particular projects I'm talking about? Local refining, you agree with me, is very key at this time.
Yes, I agree with you. But you remember that President Tinubu and the late President Muhammadu Buhari are like Siamese twins. They came together, they're partners, they're allies. They came together and, with the coalition and the merger of 2015, they had a vision. They sat down, hours of sitting down, talking about this country, talking about ways to move the country forward. Interestingly, Buhari got the first shot, and now President Tinubu is there. So it's a continuum. They think alike. They have, similar manifesto. If you look at the manifesto of 2023 and that of 2015, it wasn't that different because it's the same party. So the president, like I said, the first President Buhari came and he stabilized the economy, stabilized the country, provided the groundwork and the platform for Tinubu to now come in and move aggressively towards liberalizing the country. And part of what you are seeing with the Dangote refinery, Lekki, deep sea port projects, so many other massive projects coming on board. The AKK pipeline is still there, it's coming on board. A lot of these projects will be completed within the next few months, coming months and maybe 1 to 2 years. And you'll see how this will engender economic growth and development. So I'm not surprised, really that this is happening, because this is something that was thought through by these great leaders, and they are now, overseeing the implementation.
Let's talk about the power sector also that you've operated in. I've known you so well since when you've been at REA and all of that. What would you say also about our present capacity? Now we have the bands. We have the band A, band B, and band C, D, and E. And talking about improving generation, distribution, and all of that. What are your thoughts? Are there any quick wins for it? Because I'm still aware that the transmission company will tell you, oh, we could transmit as much as 7,000. The Genco guys will be like, no, you need to pay for our gas, guys. If you don't get our box, we're not going to release the gas for you guys. And the guys at the disco end will tell you, I'm going to give you, but you're going to give me a cost-reflective tariff. So everyone is just holding different sentiments. You understand what I'm talking about, the value chain. Well, what do you make of this? How does it come to you?
I mean, similar to oil subsidy, obviously we had electricity subsidy, in the country. Yeah. And that also distorts markets. Anything subsidy, distorts markets. I'm an economist, and, this is what we know. If you want, the market forces of demand and supply to reign supreme, then you have to allow them to find their levels. Yeah. Right? So, obviously, we couldn't continue paying subsidies as well. Just like we couldn't continue paying for oil subsidies, this government didn't even have the bandwidth. Even if they wanted to, they didn't have the resources to continue to pay for electricity subsidy. So what you hear about the major challenge, yes, we have some challenges with transmission, distribution, and all of that. We have right now more capacity for generation. So generation is not so much an issue compared to transmission and distribution. But even the transmission capacity we have can take all of the energy that we are currently generating and putting on the grid. They can transmit it. But then distribution needs to be strengthened more and also expanded, to reach the last mile. But the major challenge has always been liquidity. How do you, send electrons from this part to the other end and then receive the monies for each kilowatt hour that has been, generated and used by, the consumers? This has always been the challenge, where you see that you generate X, let's say 100 kilowatts, and then you're only getting, funds for 70 or maybe 60 kilowatts. So who accounts for the 30 or 40 kilowatts that you couldn't recover? So a lot of issues with, strengthening the grid, technical losses, commercial losses, theft, sabotage, and, the issue of tariff itself. I mean, the subsidy, having a cost-reflective tariff itself. So that's why they came up with this band system, because from our experience at REA, we realized that the problem wasn't, the payment. If you are able to provide, services, even those at the rural community, as we had tested, from various pilots and projects that we did, they will look for a way to pay. Yes, you can find a, payment plan that works for them, but ultimately, if they get power and they are enjoying services, they will pay. So the issue of band is to sort of stratify the hours of, services that you get. So if you are enjoying 18 to 24 hours, for instance, then you should be able to pay premium or pay the cost-reflective tariff, or close to it at least, so that the value chain will not go bankrupt. and there will be liquidity to continue to service, the providers, like the gas suppliers, the generators, those that are transmitting power, and the distributors as well. So that's the idea behind this band system. It's a way of also trying to, recover costs in one bit, and also trying to look at those that don't consume much, and have some sort of level of relief, for them. So that's the plan for. But ultimately, from my experience, if you generate power and you're efficient with your power and your services are regular, you see Nigerians are willing to pay. And now what they are complaining about is that the power has now been too constant and the bills are now high. And what comes in is, what they need to apply now is energy efficiency.
Perfect.
If you think that the power is now steady, you need to look at ways that you can apply energy efficiency, or so augment with renewable energy. Yeah. Maybe have some solar or inverter in your house, so that sometimes you can put off your power coming from the grid, and then that way you can manage it. It's a new wave, so gradually Nigerians are adjusting, to it.
I totally agree with you, and I'll put this in. Those days on the field, we're still on the field, I asked then His Excellency Babatunde Rajafashola was the Minister of Power, then Works and Housing, and I asked that question, and he said we need to get off all those days of leaving our lights on, energy efficiency, energy security. We can't just leave our ACs on and walk out of the house and come in. He used to talk about all of this then, and, now it's really coming to life, because we must manage efficiently or you pay more. I must thank you so much for your time. But in 1 minute, what more would you say is your outlook? What's your outlook for the economy, on the economic angle now? What would you just say, looking at where President Tinubu took the baton?
Obviously, we have a president that is bold and courageous and knows what needs to be done, and has taken the bull by the horn and is aggressively doing them. There was nobody that campaigned in 2023 that didn't say they were going to remove subsidies. Now what they are saying is that they wouldn't have done it the way the president did it. But the truth is, it's a hard pill to swallow. There is no other way, to do it other than to just do it. And then you sort of manage the fallout as it comes. I believe that it was a necessary but painful first step. But ultimately, going forward, you can see the reports from IMF and World Bank, and the outlook that we're having generally from all these Fitch rating agencies. So that means confidence in the economy of Nigeria is there. Investors will definitely come in. More of the big projects that you're seeing, like the Dangote refinery, Lekki Deep Sea Port, AKK, more of such huge programs and projects would come. And then you would see employment as these projects and programs unfold. You see more people being employed. You see more money in the hands of Nigerians. And ultimately, the future is looking good. And I'm optimistic that the economy would grow and will be better for it.
Dr. Sanusi Ohiare, thank you so much. Energy expert, economist, and academic. I really appreciate you on the show today. Hope to see you again soon. Thank you very much. All right, then.
Hope to see you too. Thank you very much.
All right, then. Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Well,